So can you give us an overview of PNP? Do you always have to start a new business, or can you buy, for example, an existing one? What determines if a business is considered a successful business? British Columbia's Provincial Nominee Program, or PNP, allows qualified immigrant entrepreneurs to start a business in this thriving Canadian area. The program promotes economic activity throughout the province in regional communities outside the Vancouver metro area. The program is especially welcoming to applicants with skills in key sectors like healthcare, construction, and high-tech, but a wide variety of skill sets and qualifications can also meet their requirements. Could you be a good candidate for this avenue to legally living and working in one of the most beautiful parts of Canada? What does the application process look like? And what benefits do you receive from the British Columbia Provincial Nominee Program? To answer these and more questions, I invited Mahyar Afzali. He's a professional immigration consultant based in Vancouver that specializes in Canadian business immigration. Based on his experience working with applicants to the program, Mahyar will tell us all about eligibility criteria, the application process, current trends and challenges, as well as commonly asked questions regarding the British Columbia Provincial Nominee Program. Let's get started. Thank you one more time, Mahyar. It's great to have you here. I have a lot of questions for you. Let's start with PNP, Provincial Nominee Program. People want to know what it is. So can you give us an overview of PNP?
Definitely. So provincial nominee programs are basically programs designed to attract immigrants to different provinces in Canada based on the needs and demands of that specific province. Today, specifically, we are going to talk about BC. So BC PNP, it's the short for BC Provincial Nominee Program, is designed to attract skilled workers, foreign entrepreneurs, investors, international like graduates in BC to try to somehow grow the economy of this region and province. And it has many different streams which leads to permanent residency for the applicants. So this is what PNP means in a nutshell.
Now, when you were saying about different streams, right? What is the difference between the base stream and the regional stream?
Sure. So we are mainly talking about entrepreneur stream today. This is one of the streams under BCPNP, one of the programs. The aim of this program is basically to attract mainly entrepreneurs and investors to start a new business in BC and call it a home, or take over an existing business and grow that business and develop it basically and invest in it. So when we talk about entrepreneur stream, it's divided in two categories. The standard one, the main one is the base category, and the other one is regional stream. So what is the difference between the two? In the base category, they have some minor differences in details. As we go through the discussion, I will explain where there's a difference between the two. But the main and biggest difference would be the location of the business and where you want to live. So in the base category, basically, you are not limited. You can live and choose any location, any city, whether it's like Metro Vancouver, bigger cities, or if it's a small town, it doesn't matter as long as it matches the nature of your business basically and what you're offering. But in the regional category or stream, this one started back in March 2019 as a pilot program or stream. And what they wanted to do is that they started cooperating with participating communities. These are basically rural areas in BC. And you can choose from those communities to basically go there, live there, and start your business in that small community. And it is a bit more complicated, or maybe I shouldn't use the word complicated. It has some extra steps compared to the base categories. So the process is definitely much longer because you need to first get the approval of those regional communities to be
Communities.
able
All
to
right.
start the process. That's the biggest difference between the two.
And obviously, people they look into the streams for a reason, right? So, like, what are some of the benefits that the BC PNP has?
Sure. The biggest one that everyone's attracted to is basically uh, it provides a pathway to permanent residency. We have many people in Canada who are living in Canada on a temporary residence basis, and they are trying so hard to find a pathway to become a permanent resident or PR. And it's not always easy. The good thing about BCPMP is that you know that you're reaching PR if you do everything right. The other thing which is very big, and I always talk about it, is that in this stream, entrepreneur stream for BC and even other provinces, you are not committing to any investment before your application is approved. So you have your money, you're not risking your basically savings or your investment amount. Whenever you have your approval, you have your visa and work permit, you come to
Then you can.
BC basically and you invest in your own business. There are some other benefits to it as well. Generally speaking, BC is a very diverse, like it's the home to many diverse industries. It's very big in tech, in agriculture, in tourism. So you have access to those markets, and it's also a growing population, which is very good. And also in terms of like choosing between different businesses, you are very flexible in BC, which we don't have that in all provinces. There is not like a list that says you're limited to like 1 to 5 industries and you have to choose from these. Anything that you're experienced in or passionate about, as long as it matches the program, you can go with that.
Well, I mean, that make it sound very attractive too. But the key question now, eligibility, right? What are the main
Yes.
eligibility criteria for this?
When we are talking about eligibility, the list is a bit long. I will try to give you like all the points that matter. Uh, so the main eligibility criteria is the experience. First, people who want to apply to this program must have previous business ownership management experience or senior management experience. And it should be within the last 10 years. And basically, you have either 3+ years of business ownership management experience or 4+ years of senior management experience. You can combine the two as well. And that's the main one. In terms of education, you definitely need to show that you have post-secondary qualification. And during the process, we assess that. And in many countries, that would be like a 1 year, at least 1 year or 2 year, like maybe a college
Got it.
diploma or degree or an associate degree, something like that. There's an exception to this if you own a business and you own 100% of shares. And
Okay.
you can show that the business has been active at least like 3 years in the past 5 years. Then there's an exception. You can apply with your diploma, high school diploma. You don't need to show basically post-secondary education. So that's something to consider because many people can make use of that. You need to show language proficiency. Definitely, that's a must. The threshold is very low. It's Canadian language level of 4, which is very low, like IELTS 4, 4.5, something like that. We
Okay.
always encourage people to reach CLB 5, which gains them like more points. The other eligibility criteria is the net worth. So what is net worth? It's basically the combined assets of the applicant, their spouse, and their dependent children. It could be like the money they have in their bank accounts, like the real properties that they own, any investment in bonds, stocks, anything that they can show with documents that it's their assets. It can be combined together. And so for the main program, it needs to be at least $600,000. And there's a difference here between regional and base category. In the regional category, it's half, it's $300,000.
It's a big difference.
Makes difference, definitely. So there are a few others eligibility criteria. So in the base category, there is no exploratory visit mandatory. So you don't have to visit BC before making an application, but it's a must in the regional category. You have to do that. That's another difference here. And one of the big things that they require is business proposal. How you show that is that first you provide a business concept. This basically details what you're planning to do, what your business is. And once you receive an invitation, you provide a comprehensive business plan, which we talk about it in more details later, probably. And I can share more details about that, which is very important. The ownership percentage is important. It's one of the eligibility criteria, and it has to be for the base category 1/3 of the business. So if you're starting a business or if you're buying an active business, you need to own 1/3 of it, basically. In the regional program, it's 51%, so it's more. These are basically, I think, all the eligibility criteria that people need to show.
And going back a little bit to the investment part, right? Is there any other sort of requirements for the investment? Because you mentioned 600 in the base and regional is 300.
Net worth, yes.
Except, sorry, yeah. So going into the investment now, what are the requirements or specific requirements that we can find in there?
Yeah, definitely. Investment is a big part of the process. For the base category, it's $200,000. It's minimum. It should definitely make sense, obviously, and correspond to the needs and scale of the business. You cannot say that I want to start a factory and like have all this machinery and like employ 50 people and like my minimum investment is like 200. So that's the minimum amount. In the regional category, it's half. It's $100,000. So it's much less. Yeah, and the investment, it's good that you mentioned, is one of the eligibility criteria as well. So you need to commit to that minimum amount.
And that's the amount that you said that you don't need to commit before. You can do it when everything is sort of approved, and then you move the investment forward, right?
Exactly.
Cool.
So the way they assess that is that they know you have that net worth of, let's say, 600,000 minimum. And you're basically saying that once I'm approved out of that net worth, I can commit to invest like $200,000 in my business.
Now, with what happened with the family members, can also be part of this whole sort of, let's say, package. Can be part of the PNP program too.
Yes, that's one of the other benefits of the program. Basically, you apply with your family members at the same time. So the spouse of the applicant can receive a work permit and apply at the same time. Also, children can accompany you, whether they're studying or if they are like very young, and they can be like visitors in BC. So they can definitely all come with you, with the applicant to Canada.
And when you say that they can get a work permit, like what kind of work opportunities the spouse could get through the program?
That's a great question. The open work permit is what's assigned to the spouse. They apply for an open work permit. The main applicant is getting a closed work permit and is tied to the business that they are starting or operating, basically. The good thing about having an open work permit for the spouse is that they are not limited to or tied to any specific employer, and they can basically work in any industry for anyone that they can get the job done, which is great.
Yeah, that is very good. And what about the children? This is I had to ask that. I have children, so I want to move there. What opportunities my children get through it?
Sure. For children, also, I would say the biggest perk of it is that when a spouse, when a couple have work permits in Canada and they have children here, the school for children in public schools will be free of charge. So from grade 1 to grade 12, they can attend schools, Canadian schools, without paying any tuition fees like permanent residents or Canadian citizens. That's one of the biggest, basically, benefits for children.
And so we have the spouse is happy, the children are happy. Now, what kind of what type of business are the main sort of eligible under the program?
Um, the good thing about BCPMP, I think I mentioned it on the benefit when we were talking about the benefits of this program. The good thing about is that, as I mentioned, you are not limited to any industry. But you need to make sure that your proposed business basically is for the purpose of like primary purpose of like uh, making profit out of providing services or like products, selling products, things like that. And you can select from a diverse like selection of industries. You have access to all industries. You need to know that some industries in Canada face significant regulatory requirements. So they are not saying that you cannot choose from those. If like an industry is regulated, you cannot choose that. But in your business proposal, you need to convince that the BCPMP team or officers basically that you are aware of those requirements and how you are going to meet them once you're in Canada.
Got it.
Because it's not always easy. Some of the highly regulated industries, I could mention like healthcare, which is highly regulated. It's not very easy to enter like into that industry without having the proper like licensing and everything. Or agriculture is another one. Transportation is one of those. Oil and gas, pharmaceuticals. These are like some industries that comes to my mind. And as I mentioned, you are not limited. You can choose this, but the process would be definitely more difficult. But there are a list of ineligible businesses. So
All right,
although
that's
you
interesting.
have access to like all industries, but there are some like
No, go ahead, go ahead.
exceptions. I would just name a few. So firstly, any passive investment is a no-no. You cannot like go with a business just to acquire like residence permit in Canada. That's another no. Any seasonal business basically is ineligible. What else? Okay, any like money exchange or money loaning or like cashing checks, businesses of that sort are not eligible. Real estate brokerage, business brokers, insurance brokers are not eligible, unfortunately. Real estate development also, this is something that many clients ask, is not eligible in BC. And any business that directly or indirectly is involved in producing or selling or distributing like pornography or like sexually explicit products are ineligible.
That's very interesting. Now, let's move into the application process, right? We already convinced the wife is happy, the kids are excited, everybody's ready to do this. So let's start. What are the main steps to take in order to apply for this?
Sure. So first, the applicant needs to plan and do their research, know what they want to do basically, and like know what would be the location of their business, what line of business they are interested at, and basically do a comprehensive research. After that, we will do a registration. We create a profile for them in the BC program, and basically they are assigned points based on their criteria all the eligibility requirements that we talk about. And the pointing system actually is divided in two parts. One part is the self-declared points, which is like your investment amount, your age, your education, your experience, like all your personal criterias, and some other things like the location of business and things like that. And then a big portion of the scoring also goes to the business plan, the business concept actually that they provide in the beginning. So that's scored by the BCPMP team. And the scoring is we are talking about the base category is out of 200 points. The business part has 80 points. The self-declared points are 120. They need to get at least 115 out of 200 to be eligible to proceed further, basically. If it's less than that, they are not entered into the pool of the program. Once they have the sufficient minimum 115 points, they will wait for their invitation. Basically, their profile is active for 6 months. Anytime during that 6 months, whenever there's a draw, they might receive an invitation. And it might happen that someone is entered the pool and the 6 months passes and they receive no invitation. So it's not like
So
guaranteed,
what is
unfortunately.
what is the common timeline for this? How do you see it in your experience?
So you mean the invitation process?
I mean, basically the whole process. How does it look in total? How long you may have to wait?
Yes, sure. So in terms of like the timelines, basically what will happen is that when we create a profile, it takes about 6 weeks for BCPMP to like score the process. Sometimes it's done faster. And once your score is clear and you have at least like 115, you're entered that pool. Your profile is active for 6 months. No one knows when you are receiving an invitation. And let's assume whenever you receive that invitation, the next step would be your business application. So you provide all your documents. We need to assess the net worth of the person with designated agencies in Canada. The business plan is prepared in that stage, which is like a very comprehensive document. And basically, we have 4 months at that stage. Once they have the invitation, they have 120 days to prepare the application and send it to BC. Their timeline for assessing an application is 4 months again. In my experience, it's usually assessed much faster. Usually we receive a response like in the first month or the second month.
Okay.
But that's how long it takes. And you will do an interview during their assessment process. And once everything is approved, they basically give the applicant a performance agreement that's signed, and they provide a confirmation letter, and with that we can apply for a work permit. So that's the nice part. But in terms of, we're talking about process times with work permits, it's very difficult to say like how long it takes. It depends basically where you're applying from. For some countries, it might be like 1 month, 2 months. For some countries, it's like up to a year even now. So you might be waiting a long time to just receive your work permit for yourself, your spouse, and the children's permits as well. And whenever you have that, you arrive in Canada and you have basically 18 to 20 months to start a business, do everything that you have promised in your performance agreement, and provide a final report to BC, listing everything that you have done. And at that point, they issue like a nomination for permanent residency. The current process time for PR now, based on PNP programs, is 1 year, which is not that long compared to other programs. Yeah. So from the beginning to the point that they enter Canada, based on my experience. It's usually between a year and a half, and then once they have their nomination, 1 year for PR.
Okay. So it's a bit of a long process, but obviously there are benefits that makes them still very attractive.
Exactly.
Now, the documentation. Let's get a little more detail about what kind of documentation you need to bring into the process.
Sure. As education, post-secondary education is required. They need to provide their educational documents. We need to do an assessment on that with designated agencies. In Canada, one of the other major documents would be the business concept. Um, that's where they can use the wonderful team of Journey and they can assist them with that. And once they receive the invitation, obviously one of the major documents would be the business plan. The other one would be the older net worth documents. Anything they own, they need to provide all the documents for us to do an assessment during the process. If they own a business, we obviously require all the business documents, the financial statements for the usually like 2 to 5 years before the application. And if they are like a senior manager, we also need like different letters of reference, like their contracts, their pay stubs, everything to show that they have been like doing the job basically. These are the most important documents, and I should not forget the language test result as well. That's something in this program. The good thing is that they can provide it at the final report stage. So let's say they have their work permit, they come to Canada, they start the business, and they have done everything. Now about like 18 to 20 months pass, they are sending their final report. With that, they need to have the language test result. But I always encourage people to do it in the beginning because they gain extra points.
Exactly. But in theory, they could also learn the language in the country, right?
Definitely, definitely. Yes.
That's a good point for sure. Now, you and we know the relevance of a business plan. We know how important it is, but I want to let you explain a little bit more why having a business plan is so important.
Yes, when it comes to business programs, definitely business plan is a big part of it. In this process specifically, it's essential to the whole process, and it also affects the scoring part. So some people say, okay, I have studied business, or I'm not saying that it cannot happen, but they just need to know that they cannot just sit down and write a simple business plan based on like a template or using like ChatGPT, like send it to BCPMP. It's a very comprehensive document. You're getting scored on each detail that you're like providing in that document. So first we provide the business concept, um, and in that document they are being scored based on like commercial viability, like what's the business model, let's say what is your market, what products or services you're providing, is it like in a key sector for BC, like the business you're going to do, like how you are transferring your skills, are you operating a business like in a related field of your background, or are you like doing something completely unrelated, and what benefits basically you're providing to BC, like how many jobs you're creating, what are the like skills of those people that you're recruiting, basically are there high skilled jobs, low skilled jobs. So all these details matters. Are there any risks
Mhm.
basically with your business? Some risks in the business plan process could be like if they are uh, investing more than half of their net worth, that would be a risk factor basically for BC. Or if they have co-registrant, so basically if two people are coming together, they say that we are applying together and each are investing like $200,000. That would be like basically a risk factor because something might happen, business might fall apart. And also, if people are using external financing, that's possible if
Loans.
it's above after the minimum $200,000, but it's a risk factor. So all these details, your ownership percentage, everything goes into that business plan, and you are getting scored based on this. And they need to, so it has 80 points out of the 200. They need to score at least 40 points, half of it, to be eligible. So
It's
it's
a
a
big
very
chunk.
important document during the
Yeah.
process.
Now, you mentioned you mentioned ChatGPT, which but everybody's using it now. Hopefully, not for
Yes.
this. But regarding to that, what are the mistakes that you've seen of people trying to go through this? What are the most common mistakes?
Um, I would say sometimes not being very flexible or realistic with the nature of the business that you are going to do, and also with the amount of investment specifically. Sometimes people want to achieve like big things with a small investment amount. That's not possible. So they need to be realistic about what they are going to do in BC, and it needs to make sense to the officers or to the team that are making the assessment. And also, job creation is something that some people want to stick to 1%. That's a minimum. So you need to recruit 1% who is a permanent resident or like a citizen of Canada. And sometimes a business, if it's going to be like operating in real world, needs like 5 employees at least, let's say 10 employees. But they want to stick with that business idea, but only recruit one. So that doesn't make sense. It's a big mistake. Usually leads to a lot of questions from the CPMP. And the one other major one is sticking to a specific location and not considering like how it affects their points, or even if it's that location in terms of like competition, the market is the good option for their business idea. Everyone wants to be in Metro Vancouver, obviously, when we are talking about BC, but that's not always the best option to go with.
To be honest, my choice will be Victoria Island. That's my favorite place around it. But
It's
anyways,
beautiful.
um,
It's
it
beautiful.
is right. I love it. It's definitely one. So
Yes.
okay, we're moving into the business. We understand a little bit better of how we're taking these steps. What are the sectors that you've seen that are a good investment for people to get in?
Sure. So there's a list of key sectors that BCPMP has provided. These are basically the industries that are more in demand and would benefit more to the economy of this province. And the good part is that if people choose from these industries, and if their proposed business is in these industries, one of these industries, they gain significant more points. So it's very good to consider. Technology is one of those, obviously. Clean technology is another one. Agriculture, what else? Natural gas, mining. Uh, the list goes on. It's like around 9, 10 different industries that you can choose from. Digital media and communication, also telecommunication. Like these are some main industries that people can choose from. If it's related to their backgrounds and it makes sense, it would definitely be advised to go with a key industry.
Now, before I ask you the next questions, I just want to remind the people at home that, yeah, a journey create business plans. But if you're not sure about what kind of business you want to get in, we also do something that is a business idea selection or concept development.
Yes.
We help you to figure out what kind of things you can get into it based on your experience, based on your background. So if you're not sure, make sure you visit our website at thatjourney.com. We can help you with that. With that being said, my next question is about what business are actually getting the best approval rate?
That's a great question, and many people ask that actually. There is no specific data or statistics like listing the approval rates, like against the line of business or the nature of business or like industry codes. But I would say if you want to have higher rates of approval for this specific program, stick to key sectors if you can. So it's not like that you can just choose any sector that you want. You need to show that you have the relevant experience and like you can like somehow make the business successful based on your qualifications. But if people can choose from the key sectors, that would definitely have a big impact on their approval rate.
Now, in your personal opinion and experience, if someone would like to start a business that it doesn't like you don't have enough experience into it, right? Like you want to switch you've been doing technology all this time, but then you want to switch to agriculture, and you don't have that relevant experience. Is there a chance for people like that?
That's yes and no. So technically speaking, the answer is yes. On paper, you can apply to or provide any business idea that you like or you're passionate about. Maybe you've done your whole life, like you've been in IT industry and or you've been an engineer and now you want to open a coffee shop or a restaurant. This is what we get a lot. People love to open restaurants. I don't know why, with no related background. So what matters is that whatever you choose, it needs to be um, somehow related, if not directly, at least it needs to be close to what you've been doing like during the past 10 years. You cannot say that I'm an IT engineer and now I'm going to into the food
A
industry
barista.
basically. Because that comes up like in the even if your profile is picked up for whatever reason, maybe your scores are high, in the interview, you cannot convince that officer that how you are going to like make this business work and make it successful with no prior relative experience. I've been into many of these interviews. Sometimes it gets very brutal if you don't know what you're doing, if you haven't done your homework and you're just sitting there and like giving like random answers. You need to be sure that you have the proper qualification to make the business a success. So that's just the only thing we need to consider. Other than that, yes, let's say if you're doing something, but what you want to do in BC, it's highly regulated or needs a lot of licensing. So you can still choose from like something related to that industry or something close to it, but still you can show that based on my previous experience, I will use these knowledge that I have, these experiences that I've gained throughout the years, and apply it to this business. And it's applicable to it. So that would make sense.
Now, do you always have to start a new business, or can you buy, for example, an existing one?
Yes, sure. In this program, you can do both. So you can decide to start your own business from scratch, um, or you can go with like purchasing an active business. There is a requirement. If you're purchasing an active existing business, the business must have been in operation by the current owner for at least 5 years before your application time. So you cannot just go ahead and buy a business which has just been active for 1 year, 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And the other option would be also franchises. Many people are interested in buying franchises. The same goes with that. The franchise you're choosing need to be well established and have been in operation for the past 5 years at least.
Everybody wants to open a Timmy's for sure. Um,
Exactly, exactly.
so now, we've done a lot of interviews, especially in the US, and there are always changes happening to all of the rules and regulation. What's going on with this program specifically? Is any latest change that people should be aware of?
So definitely changes happen, especially to provincial nominee programs. because provinces changes their requirements or programs based on their needs, and not always you receive like a heads up. Um, I know that like a few years ago there was a program similar to this in New Brunswick, and you could enter Canada basically with PR. So it was a bit different and it was great. And they suddenly closed the program and changed the whole thing. So it can happen with any program, especially provincial programs. But during the past years, what happened is that recently there hasn't been any new changes. But what happened is that after COVID in 2022, they stopped the application intake. So the program was stopped. You couldn't apply for it. And once they opened it again in 2023, they made some minor changes. For example, before when you applied, your profile would have been active for 1 year. So you had 1 year to be chosen by BC. But now it's 6 months.
That's 6 months.
It's half. So that's one of the major things, but nothing major other than that.
Now, obviously, you've seen a lot of people doing this, right? What, in your opinion, what's the biggest challenge to? Because I mean, British Columbia, we're talking about a massive land with, it's truly the land of opportunities. But what are the biggest challenges to open a business there?
Sure. So I think one of the main challenges for people would be that they're entering a new country, and if they don't know the language properly and they are like in that minimum level, they would struggle. One other major thing would be the high cost of living, obviously, and operating expenses for businesses. When you are coming to BC, to Canada, as an entrepreneur, your work permit is tied to that business. So you never know when your business starts making profit. So basically, I always advise people to be prepared and plan ahead and have savings for at least 1 year, 2 years, first 2 years, so that if they are not making any profits, at least they know that they can support themselves and their family members. So that's one major struggle for many foreign entrepreneurs coming to the country. In some industries, there are labor shortage, so it might be a bit, they might struggle to find their perfect like employee for their line of business. And if they are going to get external financing, like above that minimum investment amount, maybe sometimes like they're starting a business which is like very big in scale and they need external financing. It's not always easy for people who don't have PR. Like if the director of the company is a foreign national on work permit, uh, you convincing like the organizations to lend them that money or invest would be very difficult, much harder. And I think the last thing would be competition. Definitely, you're coming to a new country, especially if you're in Metro Vancouver. There's a lot of competition. So that's why you need to do your research. You need to come prepared. You need to know the language to be able to do what you want to do.
Um, so we do have a couple of questions that are sort of the common questions that people would ask, right? As I wanted to guide you through some of that. So, what determines if a business is considered a successful business?
That's a very good question. I think a lot of factors goes into that when we are talking about the success of business. So one major one would be financial performance. Uh, what's the profit of the business? What is your cash flow? How much money you're making? So that's the biggest, uh, I would say, metric when we are assessing the success of the business. The other one, I would say customer satisfaction. If based
Okay.
on the services and products you're providing, your customers are happy, they are staying loyal to you and to your business, that's a major success factor in my mind. And I think other than that would be um, probably the market share. So in terms of competition or the market or industry that you're working in, what is your competitive advantage in this industry? So if you have a competitive advantage over you have created that for your business, mm, that's definitely a big factor in the success of your business.
Now, for example, when we apply, right, we have certain KPIs. We say we're going to accomplish this and that. But what happens if the business doesn't meet those KPIs?
Sure. So one of the good, uh, if not the best, one of the great benefits of this program, BCPMP Entrepreneur Stream, is that when you're providing your final report of what you've done for your business, basically you do not need to show that like the business have reached this amount of like cash flow, like this is how much money the business has made. So that's not a factor. Basically, if you have started your business, you have transferred your investment, you have recruited the people that you've like promised on your business proposal that I'm doing like this many people like in the first year and this many in the second year, and basically do the first step of the structure of the business based on the business plan, that's enough. So you don't need to show like how much money basically the business is making. That's
Okay.
not a factor for BCPMP.
Now, one of the biggest questions always is this one: how can you move from this sort of work permit into a permanent residence?
That's a great question because many people think that, okay, when I have the work permit, I come to BC and I'm in Canada, so that's done. No, it's not done. It's the beginning of starting of your business. So they need to basically be actively managing the business on a day-to-day basis, and they need to live in BC. So that's very important. Some people think, okay, we come, we receive our work permit, we go back home, and then we come again, provide a final report. It doesn't work like that. You need to basically do everything that you've promised on the performance agreement based on your business plan to be able to reach that milestone of PR nomination.
And one of the other common questions that we get is, and you mentioned a little bit before, but I want to dig in a little deeper. Is any restrictions on the locations? Can you choose anywhere in BC, or is it easier to choose another place, or there's any restrictions? How does it work?
Sure, that's a great question. So once you have chosen your location, um, based on your business plan and business concept, once you're approved, you cannot change that. So you need to understand, like people need to understand that if they say that I'm operating like a new business, let's say in Kelowna, once they come to BC, they need to be in that location and live in approximately like 50 kilometers of their business location. So they cannot just go and live in any city that they like. Obviously, in base category, we are not limited to any location,
Hmm.
but we are making a selection in our business proposal, and we need to stick to that
Just takes it out.
during
All
the
right.
period that we come to Canada and we are on work permit. And once we have the PR, so basically, as a permanent resident of Canada, you can like have the mobility option. You can move to other provinces or change the location of your business eventually if you want.
And what about the time, like the time spent on certain area? Do we have some regulations on that too?
Yes, that's also very important. You cannot just come here and start your business and leave. So from the time you arrive in Canada up to the point that you are providing your final report to BC, which is between 18 to 20 months from your arrival date. Okay. During that period, out of that, like let's say 20 months, you need to reside in BC for 75% of the time. So you can travel, obviously, but it could be like just short periods of time. You need to show that I'm living in BC, I'm actively managing my business on a daily basis to be able to approve for nomination.
And are the applicants allowed to move to other locations? Not really. Like, you have to stick to that. That's what you said, right?
Definitely, because the program is for BC, they cannot move to other provinces or even other cities. They need to live in the around like 50 kilometers
50
of their
kilometers.
business of choice. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Mahyar, I have one last question that a lot of people call super cliche, but I'm sticking to it, so I'm going to ask it anyways.
Sure.
What will be your final advice for someone looking into into the BCPNP?
I would say from the beginning, the most important part is to plan thoughtfully, do your research, not just start something to move the process fast and not knowing like what you're getting yourself into. You need to do your research. If you're not sure how to select like a business idea based on your background, as you explained, like you can ask for help. Like this is one of the services like that your team provides. So just don't think that, okay, I think I'm good at this, so I'm going to proceed with this. You need to do your research. Need to know the market. And definitely they need to study and understand their business concept, their business plan. There's a lot going into, especially the business plan, that they need to be like, it's like when they're going to the interview, they need to know exactly what they want to do. It's their own business. It's not something that they're receiving just to like as a document give to like the other party, like a language test result or like a translation of like marriage certificate. They need to know what they want to do. I would always advise do whatever you can to maximize your points. If it's a higher language score, if you're like close to finishing like a degree or something, finish that and then apply maybe. So whatever they can do to maximize their points, that would be very advisable. And I think lastly, be ready for a long-term commitment. So it's a lengthy process. It doesn't happen like in one night. You're coming here with work permit. You need to like work here, live here until you reach your permanent residency. So everyone need to be patient and persistent to become successful and reach their goals for their business and also for themselves and their family members in terms of permanent residency.
That is a great piece of advice. Just people do the homework, get it done, and you'll be fine. Mahyar, I just want to thank you
Exactly.
so much for this insights. That is a very comprehensive. Like, I'm sure everybody has a clear idea of what the PNP program is. I want to thank you,
Thank you.
everybody at home, for listening. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel, ring the bell, do all of the things that you need to do on social media to always be aware of what's going on in the world of Journey. And Mahyar Afzali, thank you so much for being with us. And everybody at home, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
See you
It
next
was a
time.
pleasure. Thanks.